So Blizzard's annual convention, BlizzCon, wrapped up earlier this month, and there was some exciting news regarding their games, including their MMO, World of Warcraft. Among other announcements, including a new expansion for WoW, Blizzard announced that they will be implementing legacy WoW servers. For those that don't know, WoW is a game that evolves with every update and expansion. While lots of content from older updates are still in the game and playable, a lot of it still isn't available or it's been changed so radically that it's not what it used to be. Furthermore, a lot of old content doesn't scale to the new expansions. A perfect example being raids. Blizzard had some very challenging and interesting raids back in vanilla that were infamous in difficulty because you had to coordinate with upwards of 40 people that all had to grind for hours to get good gear, not to mention hit max level. Unfortunately, you either can't access the raids anymore, or even if you can, there's almost no point in doing them because they don't reward you with anything interesting besides maybe an achievement, some obsolete gear you can sell, and maybe a mount if you grind enough for it. Furthermore, even if you want to get a dedicated group of people together for the fun of it, the level scaling has been overhauled countless times over the years to make the game a lot more balanced and easier to play. So even if you do attempt these raids with the appropriate levels, gear, and people, it's still a cakewalk, and it's not nearly as challenging or as interesting as it was previously. So Blizzard bringing back vanilla WoW, those legacy servers, is such a huge deal to say the least, because people can now relive those memories of those raids, but some are wondering how everything is going to work, how they're going to implement all of this. Now, there are a ton of videos out there, rumor mills, that kind of stuff, so let me make this absolutely clear. What I'm going to say is entirely speculation. We know next to nothing about WoW Classic. We don't know what version of the game we are getting, or at least what version of the game we are getting at first. It could be Vanilla WoW 1.0, it could be the popular 1.12.1 that private servers use. We don't know if the servers will patch and evolve like the game. We don't know if they will implement quality of life improvements from retail WoW, etc., etc. With all that being said, let's speculate. So I think it's fair to say that vanilla WoW will probably be a part of our retail WoW subscription, if not accessible by paying either a standalone fee or an extra fee on top of our subscription to begin with. But I think Blizzard will be wise and not charge more because it's in their best interest to keep costs down. Keep in mind, WoW has threatened legal action to a lot of private servers like Nostalius, but they never shut down their servers from a threat alone. I can never say the name right. Sorry. The only reason Nostalius, there we go, complied is because they wanted to make a deal with Blizzard to get vanilla WoW servers going on Blizzard's side. There's still a ton of legacy servers out there right now that are hosted in different countries, making it harder for Blizzard to end them in a legal battle and just try to shut them down. If WoW Classic ends up sucking, or it's too expensive, people just go back to those illegal, in quotations, private vanilla WoW servers. The reason why someone would want to pay to play on Blizzard's legacy server as opposed to playing free on a private server is because Blizzard, say what you want about them, is a reliable company. They have a legacy to live up to. They have shareholders. They have a huge financial investment in their products. But more on that later. But I'll sum it up like this. Would you eat free pizza from a suspicious man on the street? Or would you pay a few bucks to go to a pizzeria? Referring back to keeping costs down and keeping subscribers, Blizzard is still hooking potential vanilla WoW players with a full retail version to be played alongside WoW Classic. Think about it. You get players to pay $15 a month for vanilla WoW. Don't you think some of them will be hopping on retail fairly soon? They are already paying for it, so why not try it? That can lead to more purchases, whether it be expansions, merchandise, or more subscriptions. Now, I don't think Blizzard will have a specific subscription for vanilla WoW in addition to including in the retail subscription, meaning people who only want to play vanilla WoW can choose to not pay for retail and pay a lower cost for WoW Classic. So by that logic, a vanilla WoW plus retail subscription would just be the standard $15 a month, but WoW Classic by itself would be $10 a month. That probably won't happen. Blizzard would probably say something stupid like, having choices would be too confusing for players. But the real reason is that if you're paying $15 a month for WoW Classic, your foot is financially in the door for retail, and it can hook players into getting invested into not only WoW, but other games because Blizzard does so much cross-promotion for all their crap. Don't forget that Activision and Blizzard are basically one company now, so there's even more potential there. I mean, Battle.net pushes merchandise all the time, so now you have more people seeing that crap. Adding value to retail and also hooking returning old WoW players is a great idea. Alright, so enough about cost. What about the launch? Well, I think WoW Classic will probably be launched in 2018 after the launch of the Battle for Azeroth expansion for the retail game, specifically between updates. It's not going to launch in the spring or summer because they would have given an estimated release unless they are hiding it intentionally. There's also the launch of the new expansion itself. Launching WoW Classic near the end of 2018 alongside the expansion or close to it is a bad idea because it can draw potential sales away from the expansion itself. Keep in mind, you have to shell out $40 if you want to play the next expansion. If people saw that Vanilla WoW was launching for free on top of their subscriptions, many would just wait for a price drop on the expansion and just play WoW Classic until then. However, I think that the WoW Classic launch itself would be a great asset to Blizzard because they can release it during a slow point in the retail game, whereby a content patch is fairly far out, and some people are considering unsubscribing to save money because they can't really find anything interesting to do. That has happened a lot before, especially in between expansion launches. On that logic, they can keep doing stuff with WoW Classic to keep subscriptions. If there's a player drought and new retail content is not ready yet, why not release an update to Vanilla WoW? They have all the code already, which brings me to my next point. What will Vanilla WoW servers be like? From the purely technical side, I think Blizzard will do an invite-only beta launch or a soft launch for certain countries to get an inkling for the demand. Contrary to belief, accounts on a free private server and signatures on a change.org petition show little in terms of data regarding the actual amount of people that are going to be on your servers. Sure, people love to play Vanilla WoW, and there are a lot of people on those private servers, but how many of those same people are going to pony up whatever price Blizzard asks for to get on their servers? Let's not forget that Elysium on day one was nearly unplayable in terms of lag, and that was a private server. Blizzard is a multi-million-dollar company. They're going to be marketing this like crazy, and they don't have a strong grasp yet on the amount of players that they will need to compensate for. I can guarantee you that. As for the version the game will launch with, it's most likely going to be 1.12.1. For those of you that don't know, Vanilla WoW 1.0 had a lot of its own oddities and problems, as you would expect from an MMO from 2004. 1.12.1 is the version most private servers use because all of the bugs and kinks were ironed out by then. It's the version right before the Burning Crusade expansion was released, but private servers lock access off to major pieces of content so that you can drip feed the updates at their own will, while not having to make significant changes to the code, so you don't have to wait for the newest update to fix a known bug that was in the game that was present 10 years ago. At least that's what I understand from it. I'd love to see a 1.0 launch because few players actually got to see that on retail. I think the number is less than 2 million. I'm certain that Blizzard will have progressive server updates like the private servers have. Maybe they won't implement them at first, but they have to have them because they wouldn't make a major business decision like this unless they were in it for the long term. Contrary to belief, this is a big financial investment on Blizzard's part because not only are they potentially competing with their retail game, but they are expected to maintain it like they do on retail and be better than private servers because they are potentially charging for it, which includes customer support, server maintenance, and community moderation. That'd be like a company launching an MMO with a subscription model but never launching updates for it. Most people would just leave after getting bored of no new content. Blizzard knows that this can't be some flash in the pan. They gotta monetize it for the long term, even if it means changing the core game. But the good news is that they know if they ruin it, people will just hop over to the private servers again and play for free. They have to compete well. WoW's first expansion, the Burning Crusade, launched in 2007, over 2 years after WoW launched. If Blizzard drip feeds content updates exactly as they did between 2004 to 2007, in the exact same amount of time, even if they don't have plans to do Burning Crusade content yet, that's still almost 3 years to decide and plan out where everything will go. If they just ended it at 1.12.1's content, players would eventually complete everything and move on to something else, or worse, unsubscribe. So they are figuring out what to do and what would be the best way to monetize it. In terms of quality of life improvements, where small updates have been added to the game over time and have been slowly improving the game to some degree, I'm not talking about expansions here, I'm just talking about little things like not dismounting from your mount when you go into water, I think Blizzard will stave off from these little improvements and updates, or at least if they do them, they're going to do it to a particular set of servers and not all of them. But I really doubt this would happen, like having achievement progress carry over from your vanilla WoW server to your retail character or something, combining code from two entirely different versions of the game, even if they're not transferring it over to the main retail game, your achievements, having just achievements in vanilla WoW would already be very complex enough because it's two entirely different games from two entirely different times. It'd just be a pain in the ass Furthermore, what about transferring characters and their items over? Would a select few vanilla WoW servers eventually evolve into a Burning Crusade server, if that even happens, or even a Legion server? Or could someone transfer their character over to retail just from vanilla WoW? Would there just be cap-offs for certain servers, and then you can transfer characters to the appropriate expansion servers, so a vanilla WoW server will always stay a vanilla WoW server, and if you want to play newer content, you can just transfer over to a Burning Crusade server? Will Blizzard even get that far to a Burning Crusade server to begin with? I don't know. Maybe. The problem is that some items on retail have become a rarity because they can't be obtained anymore. If vanilla WoW players could transfer over the rare stuff to retail, it would devalue a lot of these items. I think it's safe to say that we won't see people transferring to a vanilla WoW server from a Burning Crusade server or from any server that is running a newer build. However, I do think that once you hit max level, you should be able to clone or transfer your character with certain items to the next server. So if you max out a character in vanilla WoW, you should be able to make a copy to get into the Burning Crusade server while retaining that same character in vanilla. So you can still mess around, hang out with your guildies, do raids at that level. The only caveat being that you can only do this once per character, and if you decide to move to a retail server, your retail character will not have any items that are no longer available. Furthermore, if you transfer your character to a Legion, or I'm assuming Battle for Azeroth by this time server, I think you should get some kind of reward. Maybe an achievement for hitting max level and transferring over, maybe some feats of strength achievements that are no longer available, that you've unlocked previously but you can't really get anymore because you did them in vanilla. Maybe you can get some gold and maybe some armor to incentivize playing retail even more once you transfer over. I am not sure how this is all going to work, and it might end up being more complicated than I am making it out to be. Like maybe someone wants to take a level 80 character with a Wrath item over to retail, but a new update was just released on retail that removed a piece of content from that Wrath expansion. So that would mean that you didn't transfer over fast enough and you didn't get to keep that item. It's this struggle of retaining item rarity and balance, but also allowing people to have their rightfully earned items, if they can even transfer their characters over. We still don't even know if we can even do that. I hope you guys realize by now that this isn't going to be easy at all for Blizzard. They have a lot of people asking for wildly different things. I know a ton of people will probably disagree with what I am saying and suggesting, but to me right now, I think having stable, original, vanilla WoW servers is the most important thing we should start with. Just as long as they address and introduce more in the future, like server progression, expansions, and transferring. Anyway, when it comes to classic WoW, in my opinion, I've been saying this in my previous videos, by adding what is essentially old, previously inaccessible content as a side option to your WoW subscription, you are essentially adding value to every subscription paid. Even if someone is only subscribing to play vanilla WoW, that is still one person having their foot in the door to possibly play retail in the future. And it's still money going right to Blizzard. I know that sounds crazy to consider that someone would want to pay money for an old version of the game and only that, and not touch the new stuff, but hey, people go out of their way to pay for things they really want. Can't knock them for that. Furthermore, it incentivizes people like me who are kind of on the fence with WoW to actually resub for it. I like Legion, and I will probably like Battle for Azeroth, so I am already leaning towards resubbing, and now with WoW Classic, I will put money down day one because I see it as a ton of extra value and content, by offering a very different game experience on top of what I'm getting with retail. Because vanilla WoW is such a different game. It's funny, man, I remember when Wrath launched, and I was so excited to play my Death Knight, and I was just overwhelmed with choice to the point where it was almost detrimental. Like, I kept going back and forth between wanting to play my main and my Death Knight. The Death Knight storyline was amazing because Blizzard was really getting into more traditional gaming storytelling with scripted sequences and voice acting and cutscenes and all that, and interesting quest lines, and then this is all happening while we're all taking the fight to Northrend on our main characters at level 70. We're pushing to level 80. We're going to fight the Lich King. We're going to do all these raids. And I was just kind of going back and forth like, oh, I got to play my Death Knight. Oh, I got to play my main. It was really awesome to have that amount of choice, and both options were just very, very enticing. Like I was playing two different games, but they were both connected somehow. And with vanilla WoW, I really hope we're going to get that same feeling where we're just like, oh, I could play, retail. I can go fight Sylvanas or Anduin. It's going to be a lot of fun. Or I can go on vanilla WoW and enjoy a 40-man raid. If I had seen the WoW expansion first before I saw the classic WoW trailer, I probably wouldn't have thought much about the new expansion. But now that we are getting classic WoW on top of a new expansion, I am definitely going to resub, provided that we get everything included together, because that is so much content. Good job, Blizzard. Way to listen to your fans finally. Please don't screw this up. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening to my ramble. I have done a couple videos in the past about Legion and private servers if you want to check those out. I also have some more videos on the way if you want to just subscribe to that. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm out.